stand for the pledge, please. And I'm buying you one of these.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can we have roll call, please?
Eric Bordeaux.
Brandy Pelletier.
Christy Wood.
Eunice Landry.
Linda Sheff.
Jason Henry.
Carol Locke.
Tim Broderick.
Heidi Duford.
Lila Duncan.
Lauren Ferruccio. Ann Pierce.
Wyatt Barney.
Okay, I guess we'll open the public hearing for the innovation. Is that right? Okay, so we're opening it to public input on the innovation plan. How long do I pause for that? Okay.
There's not much indication that there's going to be.
Well, if there's anyone who's listening to the tape who would like have some questions, please direct them to Mr. Brock. That would be the best thing. He knows more about it than anyone else. All right, let's close the public hearing, and now we'll ask for public input. And seeing none, we will go to the agenda review.
Make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
Anyone want to add or subtract anything? No? Can I have a vote then, please, to accept the agenda?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we accepted the agenda. Approval of minutes of March 19th. You've had a chance to look at those?
Motion to accept the minutes March 19th, 2024.
And underneath,
Can
it
we
has
just
Carol
second
Locke as,
first?
Second.
Second?
Now you can don't like it.
Now you can talk.
yeah, it has Carol Locke as vice chair. To nominate Carol Locke as vice chair, I think it's supposed to say Jason Henry.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So we need to change that then.
Yep.
Thank you for noticing that, Eric. Any other additions? All right, let's vote on the notes with the amendment to not make me both vice chair and chair. That would be a little awkward.
You can do it.
You think so? You have faith in me? All right, all those in favor of the notes as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have the minutes. Now we have correspondence, school board meeting schedules. There's one change on this, right?
No,
For June?
already changed.
It's already changed, wow.
Yep.
Good.
People are professionals, so.
Right.
It's not me.
Well, we originally had an alt meeting for June 17th, but now the 8th graders are graduating that night, so we're going to change it to June 10th. Okay, Eric, is it, you
Yep.
got that?
Yep.
That's why they had it in their calendars that way, evidently. All right. We don't have to vote on that, do we? No, that would be under action plans anyway. All right. Any questions about the meeting schedules? Any comments? Okay, Heidi, you're up. Finance.
I present the revenue expenditure report as presented. Prospects looking in pretty good shape. You guys have any questions? I did send out an email. We're looking to encumber funds by the end of April, so we can have a better number for the end of the year. So I can come back in May and June with a more concrete number.
Okay.
So at the elementary schools last month, we started talking about possible end of the year encumbrances. Here, there is a capital plan that you saw in December and gave your endorsement to. And since your March meeting, the second annual district meeting, the Barnstead traditional annual district meeting, has taken place, and those warrant articles were approved. So the now soon-to-be former Athletic Fields Fund and Building Maintenance Fund will be dissolved on July 1st, and the new Capital Improvement Fund that also applies to all the buildings and grounds, so athletic fields don't get left behind, they're just included in the same fund. We now don't have to wait for unanticipated problems. It all passed. So by June, just like we'll do encumbrances from surplus at the other two district board meetings, we'll come here with the capital plan you've already seen and talk about how you want to fund that. When I did all this in December with those of you who were there, we talked about you'll now have access to that reserve fund and you can use the money in that reserve fund. But If you have unencumbered surplus at the end of the year, you also have that option. So that's how that'll look here. It's a little bit different than you're seeing it at the ultimate Barnstead Board meetings.
So you'll bring suggestions?
We'll do the same thing.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay, so we're on to our student report.
Good evening. I'll start with athletics early in the season. Girls tennis is 1-1, I believe. Mr. Henry can correct me if I'm wrong. Boys tennis just improved to 2-1 about a half hour ago. Baseball unfortunately lost their first game of the season. Really have a promising team. Softball won their first game 12-0 against Berlin. This marks their 40th straight win as undefeated two-time champs.
That's fantastic.
That's an amazing accomplishment. Last week, Tegan McCausland held a fundraiser in benefit of Live and Let Live Farm, where she raised goods and just various donations to give to them and help them with their day-to-day. FBLA recently participated in State Leadership Conference, and they were phenomenally successful. I mean, they sent 9 students, a multitude of which got first and second place, considering there were 475 students at the competition, and we only had 9, where some other schools had upwards of 50 students. I think this is a great feat.
Wow.
And each
That's
student
great.
only competes in one event too. So to have that percent of success is amazing, and I think it shows the strength of our program. I encourage you to read through the various individuals and what awards they got, as well as a full note from FBLA on the back of my report. And then lastly, both
Can I
the
ask
international.
when the nationals are?
I think it
Do you
says
know?
on the back.
Oh, it's on the back.
They're working on some fundraisers right now to help support their trip. So I encourage you guys to do what you
Okay.
can there. And then lastly, both of the international trips. The trip that Mr. Long is spearheading to Dublin and London, I believe.
Yes. Scotland.
What was that?
Scotland, Ireland, and London.
Yes.
Amazing.
They
3
leave
a.m. Thursday morning.
early.
I'm in here dropping one off.
You're gonna be dropping off, are you?
And then the trip to Spain departed today, so kind of
Oh, they
a
left
few
today.
classes,
Oh,
but
wow. That's very exciting. Okay, so the snippet was just about, okay. Any questions for Wyatt? Sorry I interrupted you earlier. I just was wondering how much fundraising you have to do. Sounds like a lot, so we can look at that. But that's very impressive. Thank you for sharing. Very impressive. All right, Haley's not here tonight, but we have her report. So I don't know if you need to go over it now, if anyone had a chance to look at it earlier. There's really nice highlights of people and what they've done. Any questions that we can relay to Haley later?
No, I think just to follow up the names of the student of the month.
Okay.
Always nice.
Sure. You want me to pronounce that last name? Huh?
I do.
So the Student of the Month winners, the freshman is Andrew Korolski. How do you say that?
Kowalski.
Kowalski? Really? That's too simple. All right. Isla Drollett is the sophomore. Katie Healy, and then is the junior for Student of the Month, and Isabel Whittier is the senior. So congratulations to our Students of the Month. That's always good. And they always have the Good News Assembly. They were emphasizing this month diversity and empathy, which are always good to emphasize. And then this in March is Curiosity, so we'll see how that goes. So they're recognized in April, correct? Tomorrow. Okay, well, yeah, we're coming up right to the vacation, aren't we? Coming down to the crunch. So then she has reports about Future Farmers of America, the State Outstanding Green Can Advance. So Kaida Smith placed first place. Jordana Price did second place. Forestry, third place is Kaida Smith. Agricultural sales, Luca McGuire, fourth place. Demonstration, Kaida Smith, first place. Floral design, Kaida Smith, third place. And floral design, Jordana Bryce, third place. So our kids are really shining. They're doing a lot of work and really being recognized for that hard work and their skills. So then there were the student athletes who went to the Athletic Interscholastic Association, brought our athletes in and recognized scholastic athletes.
Capital Center for the Arts.
I'm sorry, what?
I think it's at Capital Center for the Arts.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Very nice
That's
presentation.
31st year for females and 26 years for males to receive this highly distinguished award. So the recipients from our school were Grace Brooks, Reese Burke, Ethan
Capsules.
Thank you. Gwen Christie, Brendan Francis, Shannon Kelly, Nathan Levitt, Dylan Miller, Aaron Lonsley, Eve Roberge, Ella Smith, Micah Swenson, and Elijah Thurgood. Asia, sorry. Well, you know, this is what happens when I don't teach phonics. I didn't learn phonics in school. I didn't. It was an experiment in the New York schools at the time.
You and Lucy Calkins?
No, not Lucy Calkins, but New York schools weren't teaching phonics when I was there. So anyway, then she of course mentions the field trips to overseas. All right, any questions? I'm sorry I brutalized all the names. It's just the way it is for me. All right. So we're on to technology report.
There isn't, Matt was gone this week.
I'm sorry, what?
Matt was gone last week, so he didn't.
Matt's
Oh, okay.
back from the conference today, this afternoon.
Alrighty, so we don't have one, that's fine. Curriculum and assessment, Matt is in Florida at a conference, so we have a report here somewhere.
Starts with data dashboard.
Okay,
So it's the same data. What we're trying to do is build a consistent reporting mechanism so you're getting the same data over and over and can see how it trends over time. I have something under my report. My report will be quicker if I just say right now that I sat in the other day on a meeting with Matt and a consultant who we've been using ESSER funds to pay for to help develop ELOs, extended learning opportunities. So in the past, ELOs have been relatively limited to student initiative here, and what we're developing, you already know that we have a partnership with the Alton Dance Academy. Those are technically considered ELOs, extended learning opportunities, because they take place outside of the school and we issue credit. And we can do more of those kinds of things if we find other community partners who are providing those kinds of learning opportunities for our kids that align with state standards that we should be teaching anyway. But what Matt's been working on under ESSER is a system for developing work-based learning programs for credit. That means an advisory board of business owners that I would think we could partner with local business associations. I know we have at least one that would probably do that. So that, you know, it's more than, I'm not going to go on at length, but because there's more coming, but it's more than just credit for going to work. We form a partnership with the employer, and the employer helps assess what the student is learning in specific areas that relate to employability. But for kids who are either preparing for the world of work or they're going to work anyway, and can benefit in a way, again, that aligns to state standards that already exist, that we can teach in our public school, it's another way to earn credit for those kinds of opportunities. So next steps include some training with the school counseling office, and then with all staff, because it is a different way of thinking about learning outside of the school and off the campus than we've experienced at Prospect Mountain in the past. So it's going to take, I think, letting everybody understand what's going on and talk about it and really ask their questions and figure out how this all works. And then at the end of the year, I think that's the first time we try to bring in that advisory council or advisory board of business people to talk about what we can do and how we have to go about it, right, with insurance and contracts and some of the other stuff that we really need to have in place in order to make those relationships work under the auspices of the public school. So now I won't talk about it.
Okay, well, I think it's great, yeah. The other piece is the summer credit recovery, which is on the very last page of this report. We talked about this at our curriculum committee meeting. I was the only board member at that meeting, but we talked about the untracking that's coming in the future. And so this is kind of a way to start that process through the recovery program, because then that person who's teaching that will have various levels of kids together, and they're gonna practice the untracking through the summer recovery, just so you know. All right? Is
It's
there
also a
anything-
practical matter, because when you're dealing with students who are recovering credit because they failed a class, there aren't that many usually from each
Right.
class, so you end up putting them in groups together.
So it's only for students in grades 9 and 10 at this point?
Yeah, so it was only 9th and 10th.
We can check, I'll ask them.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was wondering that too, so it's
Yeah.
9 and 10 only.
Right, there's a reason that it would prevent, we would prevent 11 from 12 years.
Didn't see you coming. I did your report
Thank
very,
you.
very poorly, very phonetically challenged, man. All right, so he doesn't have the program of studies here on his your list for, it's under action items, so you want to just wait for
It's
that?
up to you.
We can wait. Okay, it's your turn.
You're on me already?
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Yeah, I'm
flying.
looking right too.
So
Amherst
the
is my mom.
only memo I put on the table in front of you relates to the innovation plan and the public hearing that just took place. So I just want to point out before you get to your action items, that it's titled Re-Granite State Academy. Edits to the innovation plan. There's one new section we added since your meeting when we actually gave you copies of it. I also emailed you electronic access to the file. So if you're good with the Google domain stuff, you can go into it and you can see this section. It starts on page 4, but I've printed it and given it to you here. The other thing we will want to do is post the entire plan online on our website, and we can do that. But when you get to action items, we can talk more about, whether you're ready to do what we're gonna ask you to do tonight and how you wanna proceed. But I just wanna point out that that's what this is. And the reason we added this section is that the Department of Education has issued guidance on alternative programs that lists the components that have to exist in a school board approved alternative program. And they are lettered in the DOE guidance A, B, C, D, E, and F. And in this section of our innovation plan now, we have lettered the components of the alternative program A, B, C, D, E, and F, so that at some point when this is being reviewed by staff at the Department of Education, their document and our document will line up and hopefully make that easier for everyone to understand. I'm going to hand a couple of other things around, and hopefully I can do this in the order that I listed these on the agenda. Open enrollment update. We haven't had too much in-depth public, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Public conversation about what's been going on with open enrollment this year. Let's see if this is enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4, 5, 6, 7. One person doesn't get one. But this is, and so last month, the State Board of Education heard an appeal from a parent who resides in Pittsfield, who was appealing a decision by the Pittsfield School Board to not pay open enrollment tuition for a student who resides in Pittsfield but attends Prospect Mountain High School. I know this because the parent was given the option of holding the hearing in non-public session or in public with the state board, and they chose public. So I actually was able to attend and hear all of the arguments made by the Pittsfield School Board and their attorney, and hear the arguments made by the parent. We were not a party to this conflict. It's a conflict between a parent and a different school board. The state board asked questions during that meeting last month and then took no action but put the matter on the table. And at the State Board of Education meeting last Thursday, so 4 business days, I guess, ago, they brought it off the table and made their decision. The Pittsfield School Board's attorney argued that other school districts have to hold their own vote to adopt the provisions of RSA 194D, in order for their students to be eligible to attend an open enrollment school like ours. And the state board had a hearing officer. What they do when a parent has a conflict with the school board and appeals the board's action or decision to the state board is they have a pre-hearing with a hearing officer who's usually an attorney. And then that hearing officer issues guidance to the State Board of Education. In this case, the hearing officer's guidance was actually consistent with the argument being made by Pittsfield's attorney that RSA 194D does create an opt-in, and if other districts don't adopt the law, then they don't have to pay tuition for their students to go to an open enrollment school like we have established here. On Thursday, the state board determined that its hearing officer's interpretation was not correct, and they rejected the Pittsfield School District or school board's attorney's interpretation of the law. And their interpretation of the law appears to be, we'll get a written decision, and then I can give it to you and you'll really see what their interpretation is, but because they rejected that interpretation, it suggests that they're going to find that under RSA 194D, any student who resides anywhere in New Hampshire may attend an open enrollment school like ours, and that those districts are required under that law to pay tuition as the law defines, and so you already know about that language. So, like I just said, I'm expecting a written decision from the state board. It was a unanimous vote, so all members of the state board who were present voted the same. That written decision will certainly include their exact interpretation of the law, so I've kind of characterized to the best of my ability sort of what I think it's going to be, but they will write and speak for themselves. And then it's possible that they will include some kind of enforcement language or mechanism. I'm not sure, because the law is silent on that. Like if we send a bill and another district doesn't pay it, what happens? I don't know. So based on that information, when we receive a copy of that decision, I plan to send copies of it to some of my colleagues in surrounding school districts that have students attending Prospect this year, along with invoices from our business office. And if you are curious, that does change the revenue estimates that I've given you. So I've attached a sheet that gives you at the bottom a list of the other districts that we have students residing in, and what their, I'm at the bottom in the little grid, what their per pupil cost was last year as reported by the Department of Education in December on their DOE 25 report, and then what 80% of that amount is, because that's the number we use under this RSA. At the top, without identifying any students, I've given you an anonymized listing of all the students we have attending here under something that isn't residency. So you'll see that some of these are listed as open enrollment, others are listed as manifest hardship, others say best interest. Again, no students are identified here, and it gives you an idea how I have calculated the amount of revenue that I think we should be entitled to, and we'll continue to see how it goes. But this is a change from where we've been up until now.
It's great news.
So if I can proceed, do we need to stop and talk now?
I don't know.
Somebody might. Good news.
It's good news. Does anyone have any questions for Tim?
You mentioned Title II. When will we know exactly if we are receiving revenue?
When the checks arrive. I mean, I'm not trying to be fresh. That is when we'll. No. In the meantime, though, Mr. Bordeaux, there are other things that are going to happen here, right? I might get some responses. That might tell us something. It'll be interesting to see what the state board actually includes in its written decision. You know, that'll tell us more. I don't think it'll be more than a couple of weeks, so we'll certainly have it by your meeting in May, and it'll be a public document. So it's something I can email you all a link to it, or the document itself. It's not like we have to worry about a public meeting law around that, because it's a public document. So I can just send it to you all when we receive it, and we can all read it at the same time. But there are still questions, of course.
And are we making enemies with neighboring schools with right now Pittsfield's having lawyers. If our goal, you know, is to get more students to the school and we're trying to partner with other schools, could this, you know, hurt that possibility down the road?
I suppose anything's possible.
We've actually been very friendly to neighboring schools, trying to work out some kind of tuition agreements to help them out. And they have rejected our efforts, so.
The schools that have contracts with other high schools, that's really the biggest question mark. And if they do agree to pay this tuition, it's a lot less than what they're paying that other school district. So that would be an issue for that other school district, that they would not be receiving that revenue. So who knows what the wave will be like.
And also it's a consideration, I mean, ultimately, our goal is to not have to have a reduction in staff or a reduction in programs.
Right.
Some layer new, so we've been going through this process and a lot of projections and stuff. If we continue on the path we're going, we're looking at about 7 more teachers and programs that we'd have to reduce over the next 4 or 5 years.
I'm not going to speculate
We
on
hate
the
to put
record.
a number on it.
But it was heading down that pathway.
We've lost enrollment, yeah. So this is helpful.
I have a question about your report. There's a couple on here that are best interest, but they have a different funding.
So one of the things I've talked to other superintendents about is, and if you want to talk about a particular best interest situation, we can do that in non-public and should do it in non-public. So if you want to be specific with your question, please do later if we end up in non-public. Bring it there. What I would propose to you all is that if we're an open enrollment school, then in the future, there doesn't really need to be a best interest placement or a manifest hardship case, right? Because anyone can come. This goes back to a question that the joint board grappled with a year or year and a half ago about, do we create some kind of tuition program for children of employees? Well, in an open enrollment future, you don't need to, because they would be eligible to apply and to come. So what I will suggest is that we use the 80% tuition calculation for all students who don't reside in Alton and Barnstead, and going forward, consider them all open enrollment students.
That seems fair.
Yeah.
It's also a way to, if we're worried about relationships, which we should be, I'll admit that, it reduces cost. Going forward, so you adopted a policy last year that states that you'll hold a public hearing every spring and then establish the number of seats to make available for new incoming students under open enrollment. We will schedule that public hearing to take place at the beginning of the May meeting. Maybe it will be as exciting as the public hearing we had tonight. I think, and I'm telling you this now so there's time to think about it, I think that I might recommend that you make available 20 seats for incoming 9th graders and 5 or perhaps 10 seats for incoming 10th graders, and we can talk more at that hearing that night or during that meeting that night about why I think those numbers might make sense for you going into next year. I think, if I remember it right, we have 8 or 9 students I would expect to be returning who are already enrolled under open enrollment. And it's not like everything has been figured out yet. It's still a process. And there are still some unanswered questions. So one of the things you need to consider, to continue to consider, pardon me, is how to mitigate any financial risk, right? Don't bite off more than the school can chew without incurring additional cost, you know? So I'm doing my best to sort of figure out where that number should be so that you can continue, we can keep going down this road. If we need more from the state board or from the legislature or from the judiciary, it can come, and you don't overextend this institution to the point where it's going to cost new money, extra money. You know, right now it's a small enough number of students. I mean, 9 to 12 kids could transfer in or out during any given year, and you wouldn't notice anyway. So that's kind of what's going into that, my thinking around how I recommend a number for you. But ultimately, it's going to be up to you to figure out where that number should be, and that's next month. And then finally, on May 2nd in the evening, the high school is planning its annual open house for 8th grade students. And I think that this is the year that we invite families of 8th and 9th grade students from surrounding communities to join us for that open house. And we open the application portal on May 1st, so that it is open on May 2nd for open enrollment students. And we have QR codes here that people can scan to start those applications during the 8th grade open house. The admissions policy and procedure that you approved in December has fall admissions applicants, like the first round of applications for next fall, closing on May 31st. So if we stick with that, you can change it, it's your rule. If we stick with that, then we're open for 4 weeks, right? May 1st through 31st. And that's for a student and family to complete an application. The student writes a 300-word essay. They request some records from the school that they've been attending this year. If we feel like we need a little extra time, you might consider extending that to the middle of June 15th or something like that, make it a 6-week process instead of a 4-week process. I wouldn't want to keep it open too long, because at some point we need to schedule the school for next fall. And knowing how many students are going to be here is an important part of that.
Right.
The other thing, and I'm done with this topic, and I know you may have questions, is once that initial round of applications are in, we send out admissions letters, and then there may be a wait list, depending on how many seats are made available and how many applications we receive. As students decline, we would work down that list. There are rolling admissions, again, in the policy and procedure that you saw from August to December, there are rolling admissions that open up in August. So there's an incentive for families who want to do this to show up and apply now, so that we have the certainty for scheduling purposes of how many kids and what kinds of classes they need. But then, if we still have capacity open, admissions can open back up in August on a rolling basis. Again, until we meet that cap, that whatever that number is that you end up determining we're going to accept for next year. So that was a lot on open enrollment, more than we've had in a long time, but because some things.
So do you want direction from the board?
Yeah, I guess if you want to extend that application deadline from the 31st of May to the 15th of June or some other date, I would look for you to vote on that, because you actually voted to adopt the first rule.
Yeah.
So it's up to, I think we can deal with it either way. I'm trying to anticipate like what's going to
guidance.
work for families. Do they need more time? That kind of thing.
You're in charge of scheduling, so I'm wondering how you feel about extending it that far. Honestly.
I know
you
the
need to be
answer.
honest.
Next.
I'll hide Tim's face.
6 weeks?
June 15th will work for you.
Is June 15th too late? Should we be
What do you think?
doing earlier?
She's wondering if we close it earlier.
Oh, close
Do we
it
need to get
earlier?
the schedule wrapped up before June 15th, or is that extension okay?
I'd like to wrap up the schedule, but if it would open it up to have more people enroll, then we could work with that. I don't know, Mr. Broderick and I were speaking about possibly waiting and sending home schedules this summer, but we haven't finally determined that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a strange year, right? These are new developments. Something happened
Right.
last week that's going to affect some of your decision making. I would have liked to do an open house a month ago,
Sure.
but just didn't feel secure to do that the way I feel a little more secure now.
I don't have a problem with the 6 weeks, and I don't really feel strongly either way. I think the thing that I feel most strongly about is getting schedules in kids' hands before summer.
Before summer, right?
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I would like to have them have their schedules while they're still here, so that they're able to see adults and meet with guidance and teachers and work out any possible issues. I think that's the biggest.
We extended it to June 8th and cut it back a week. Would that be a lot of time for you guys to open up a little bit and then still work on your schedule too?
And by the way, 4 weeks may work just fine. I don't think we've created a particularly heavy, onerous application process for people
Right.
to do. I think most
Like,
families
if
could
we
do it
did-
within a couple of weeks.
If we did the 4 weeks, I'm just trying to think, so let's say we had it at May 31st, I mean, we meet in May, could we then vote to
Extend it.
extend it then?
Plus, we
So when you
know, we
meet
know
in
what
May-
kind of response we were getting.
Right.
I think that the scheduled would be primarily done by the end of May. And that, we're talking about a few more open enrollment kids coming in, that we would just enroll as if any new student had moved into the area. So I think it's possible to do both.
And we could give you an update on how many applications had been submitted by the date of your May meeting. And we would think if people are motivated to do this, we would get them early. And then make a decision then?
Yeah, I say we
I
just
think that
leave
sounds
it
good.
for now.
I do think it's harder for kids if we get them their schedules in the summertime. You're right. They need to be able to meet with counselors if they want to change something.
My preference is to give them ahead of time.
Sure.
Yeah.
And mailing too. That's a lot of, you could save money by not mailing. There you go. That's very true.
May meeting, open enrollment application update. At the
Okay,
meeting.
sounds
Got it.
good.
Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions on that topic? There's a lot there.
All right.
A little later.
You already did the.
You're not done with me yet, sorry.
I see that.
We talked about the ELOs, so I'm gonna hand this one around now. Five this way. Yeah, football. Everyone was expecting this tonight, right?
We've heard it before.
Yeah, and
Football's
if it
expensive.
doesn't happen now, you'll hear it again, probably. We've had 3 times this year, we've had folks reach out to talk about football. A couple of times from the program that people have, I think it's a grassroots program, that has sprung up in Farmington to try to reestablish a high school team there. And they wanted to have some conversations. We do have some Alton Barnstead kids playing. They tell us between 10 and 20. It's hard to be sure. We've done the best we could, a little bit of local Ask the Kids research, and it does seem like there are more than 10 students playing in that program. But those are students from a lot of different grades, all. So that's not 10 kids all in the same class or anything like that. Recently, many of you know James Christie, the successful head coach of our varsity softball team. He has a background in football, and he's been talking to us about offering a instructional flag football league here during the summer, maybe on Sundays when we don't have a lot of other things going on. He would ask that the board not contribute any money to anything. He would offer it for free, except that we donate time using the grass. And we've sort of mutually agreed that a miniature field could be striped, so we would pay to do that, but that's something we do ourselves. In the space where the throwing fields are, in between the track and the softball field, so it wouldn't impact any field that we use for anything else. I get it. So if the board were okay with that, it would give us some basis for starting to figure out how many kids might be interested. Stick to flag to remove the contact concerns that some parents have. And frankly, for younger kids, the best way to learn the game is probably to learn the concepts first before they start banging into each other too much. And then the last thing on my memo, if you've read ahead, might have raised an eyebrow or two. There are actually some states, and some of them are really big traditional football states, where their smallest school divisions have adopted an 8 versus 8 format for full contact football. They just remove linemen, and they have kids at all the skill positions. And Matt Jazokis, who some of you know has a lot of history with football in the Granite State, has already spoken with some folks at the NHIAA about this. It is not something, when it doesn't already exist in a state, people don't say, oh yeah, we love this idea. That's not usually what happens. But it's the beginning of a conversation. And I think Division IV football in New Hampshire the schools that struggle, and I already mentioned one of them, that used to have football and then didn't, now is trying to get going again. The schools that struggle usually struggle because of numbers. And why haven't you had football here in the past? It's perceived as expensive, and how would we have enough kids without destroying other sports?
Right.
Because we
There's
don't
also
have
no
enough kids.
feeder program.
Yeah,
And-
right,
and
that
we
was the
go
big
kind of
issue,
full
there's
circle
no
to
feeder.
what James has asked you to.
Right, so personally, I'm all for it. I think that if it's another activity that kids could get involved in,
Especially in the summertime, it's
Yeah.
very healthy for him to
Yeah.
offer a free clinic. It's not like we're asking for money. I think that's a great idea myself.
He started this winter in his places, having roughing flag football. It's been very interesting. The kids love it. It's been pretty popular, and it's been gaining more and more kids are joining in, so he's gonna do it for free and stuff.
I think it's great.
Just a little bit of clarification. It says that there's developing the feeder program. It would be open to all ages. Are we talking just high school, or
No,
that it's not?
no, he
Well,
wants
then we
to,
have
now
to
we're
be-
talking about a program that doesn't exist right now, right? So he
Right.
wants to open it up to students of all ages, and then based on the numbers, figure out how to group them.
Sure.
Right, I mean, Pop Warner, which I was involved in the past, there are real rules about age and weight, so
Yeah.
kids don't get hurt.
Not so much a flag football.
So flag helps, right?
There's no contact, so
No contact.
weight doesn't, so probably rough some of it, weight doesn't make a difference on its age, it's just by age,
so,
brackets.
yeah, I actually had a student who was deaf who participated in it as well. And flag football was a way that he could participate, because of the different rules and contact. So it does open it up to not only all ages, but all
Abilities.
abilities.
Genders as well, because we
Yeah,
have a lot
I
of
hope
different
so.
genders.
For
There are
sure.
genders who are playing the flag football because it makes no difference. It's,
Yeah.
it's not tactical, so you grab the flag, you can run, you can play flag.
Fully
Are you
support
looking for
that.
a vote on this?
Well, if you want to, or if you promise not to get mad at me if we do it, that's fine
I
too.
think we should do it.
I just have a quick question. Definitely in favor of it. Just remind me of, just so we're consistent, remind me of the field utilization. We talked about it not too long ago. So where this is at no cost, we wouldn't charge a fee for the.
So that's what
field
he's
to
asking,
utilize.
is that we would give him the field space, but use a part of our fields that we don't use for any of our sports.
So
And it would be, I forget the dimensions, it's 75 yards by 25 or something like that. So it's smaller than what we think of as a football field, but for flag football and learning the concepts, that's okay. And 8v8, by the way, when they do play interscholastic 8v8 football, it is on a smaller field also. And I think there's no kicking, so you don't have to buy Salco posts.
So it wouldn't
It's
interfere
just
with
a
other
field.
teams practicing then?
Not at all.
Okay.
And I know it's counterintuitive, right? Declining enrollment, adding sports. We've been in the process of adding wrestling over the last couple of years. I ran into Coach Papasino the other day, and he told me that he thinks they might end up being a year ahead of what we thought the schedule was, and there may be enough kids at the high school
That's great.
level to start next year. I thought it would be one more year. And I don't think that has impacted any other sports. I think they're different kids.
We're finding
That's what
kids
we're
who
finding.
aren't normally engaged.
So when we're
That's
adding
right.
sports, again, I know the fear at any school, it's not just here, this happens everywhere, is, well, if we have too many sports and not enough kids, we're gonna dilute them all. But so far, I think we've been finding kids who aren't doing something else, for the most part at least.
No, I think that's great, and if we're opening it up to all ages, it's not just limited to Prospect Mountain High School. If it's a program, I just want to be consistent. If we're charging for others, but not, it makes it look like a bad.
Well, he also the kids aren't gonna pay anything either, it's gonna be
So that's
entirely
what
free.
I was asking for
Yeah, this will
clarification.
be all
If
free.
it's at no cost, we wouldn't charge.
Yeah,
a fee.
if you
it grows
needed.
beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't gotten way into it because I said, well, let's go talk to the board, so here we are.
No, I just
But
want to be
no,
consistent
the
down the road,
idea
that's
at
all.
least, the proposal from Coach Christie was, we'll make sure it costs nothing to anybody.
Should we talk about lacrosse next?
Next year, we'll talk about lacrosse.
I can definitely say with football that there is like an entirely different group, because I know a plethora of kids who live, eat, and breathe football. They just don't have a lot of opportunity to play contact or flag, and they don't play any other sports, I mean, the majority of them.
That's
So
right.
I imagine that trait carries through the different grades.
Yeah.
They travel to play, right? They travel.
Some of them have traveled, some of them have done flag football, but as they've aged up, there's less and less opportunity.
Even you see our kids that are seen come through, they did a little travel thing too. They did down at the place, and they also made a hall called their awesome team for travel. It is a lot of different kids you can see on the other sports. And some girls that came out too, which was pretty neat. So it was a different group of kids.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right, so, sounds good to me.
You nodded.
I just have a question. If this is for all ages, isn't this more like a rec program?
It is.
So it's gonna be for like a town recreation out of Alton or
We
Farmstead?
won't, we'll just offer it.
To both.
We won't do it through
What if he
the rec
offers
department,
this
we'll
out?
just offer it.
And you have 250 kids show up that wanna play. Are they all gonna play on that mini field?
I mean, I think that would be a wonderful problem to
I
have that we're
well,
not
I
anticipating.
agree, but I'm just wondering like where that, what might, what's our backup plan?
I think we'd go from 8 in the morning till 6 at night and run them on and off if we needed to.
I need some help.
I definitely
I-
think Mr. Christie can take control of that, manage.
Yeah, I
It is-
think we might consider 40 to 60 kids of roaring success coming on and off by age group over the course of several hours.
Is he gonna send information through the schools?
Yeah, we'll
Farmstead
work,
School?
right, we'll allow information to be distributed through our elementary schools and through our high
Right.
school,
I
and
think
we'll
that
support
would be
this.
important.
We'll call it a, Alton and Barnstead Schools opportunity,
Yeah.
provided at no charge.
But this might be a good opportunity, like you mentioned, with open enrollment, so you would want to kind of advertise this maybe to kids who live in Epsom, Pittsfield, and et cetera, to gather the older age groups.
Well, they get to know some of the kids that are going to school here. That's important to them. I know that some parents who talked about sending their kids here were concerned because their students were saying, no, I want to be with my friends. But there were other students who made friends through soccer and other types of rec programs who are very easily assimilated to our school. So that might offer that opportunity where they're able to meet some new kids.
I think and I'll use the wrestling thing again, sort of as an example. I think we crawl and then walk, and then maybe someday we'll be able to run. And what we did with wrestling is we bought a set of mats, or at least you didn't stop me. And then the first year we had 12 kids, and then we had 18 kids, and now by next year maybe we'll be wrestling interscholastically.
It would be great.
My only final question is, and I mean, God bless them for volunteering, but so we're not gonna, there's no stipend for this person's
Not if it's a rec program, if it's, you know.
time and
He came to
energy
us.
and- I know, I'm just,
I mean, it could grow into that, right?
It is
If it
a fun
becomes
thing.
something that the school
Okay.
offers.
I
but
just
right
And
want
if
to
we
make
offer
sure
a
that,
stipend,
at some
then it
point that I want to make sure that that's addressed, because
Yeah, I mean, I think that certain, and I don't know the gentleman particularly well, and we're speaking here in public, but I'm not going to say anything that I shouldn't say about somebody in a public meeting. I think some people invest, right,
Absolutely.
their own time and energy in
Right.
something that could turn into something more, and I wouldn't be shocked if one day we had a full contact interscholastic football program if the first application to be the head coach came from the same person who just came to us asking to start this, right?
I just
Wouldn't
don't
be
want to, I
surprised.
just don't want to, expect that would always be for free. And I want to make sure that we are very appreciative of a person's time.
Year at a time, I think, with something like this.
Mhm.
It's hard to start new.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
hard
I
to start new
just-
programs.
that's
It's
all.
hard to start new
Just-
sports. And and I want to make sure I'm not
Yeah.
overstating a promise here. This doesn't mean we end up with football at this school, right?
No, right. Can't
I mean-
Let's really crawl, then walk.
My kids played Lakes Region, and we would travel to Meredith every Sunday, and there were a lot of kids that did the flag football around here, and it was hard on parents to drive that far. And so, knowing that there's so much interest in it, worrying about how big the numbers may be is just a concern.
Well, we'll talk to them about that
Yeah.
specifically then. I can make sure we do that.
I think it's super exciting because if we attract a new group of kids, right?
Right.
That means additional connections to school, which increases academics and a
Yeah, I
feeling of
agree.
community.
I agree.
So it's a super win in that regard.
I'm really impressed that he's willing to do this.
I'm going to make a motion that we move superintendent forward with the
housekeeping items. I know that's the end of my report on the agenda. But last month, we promised you updated board binders with all of our governing documents in them. So here's a prototype and a question. Should we make this electronic? Because this has, we can do both. We can give you the option of getting a hard copy, but so the JMA, the Joint Maintenance Agreement itself, and the MOUs that go with it, there's one for special ed and one for shared services, the Educator Code of Ethics and Code of Conduct from the Board of Education, some law that applies to service in a school board, a few policies, again, that apply to you to service on the school board. The whole policy manual's online, so it's not all in here. The open enrollment admissions policy and so on. There's just, it's getting, we just keep thinking of something else to add.
So if it's online, as long as it's user-friendly, I'm all set. So if I can go to an index and click on that link and go directly to that area, sometimes these things become so overly burdened online because then I'm scrolling to find it. I'm not finding it by clicking.
If you do a simple begin with a hyperlink just to the sections.
To the different
And
sections.
if there's a paper copy available, if you should want one, then.
Right.
We'll make a half a dozen of them or something to start, and anyone who wants one can
I'm off electronic
and
as long as I can do it.
Yeah, I
That
think
click thing.
even 2, 3 at most.
we'll work with somebody who knows how to do that hyperlink stuff. He's grinning. So
That'd be great.
we can
I
get
would
it done.
appreciate that.
Is that okay, Jack? Can we do that? Thank
Yeah.
you.
You have to cater to the older people in it.
For Mrs. Locke's sake, I want you all to know that we have received from the Governor Wentworth School District a revised regional agreement for their career and technical center, which I understand from conversations with their superintendent may have some changes in it, but it's not redlined. So rather than distribute it and ask you to act on it tonight, we want to find out what might be different and then ask you to act on it in May.
Because May 6th is the dinner, I think all of you got an invitation to the dinner from Wilbur. And I got a letter saying they needed me to sign that May 6th, and I had no idea what I was supposed to sign, so I wasn't gonna sign it. But I contacted Tim and said, what is this? What's going on? Is this legit that I need to sign? And we haven't had a chance to review it. We need to approve it on this level, and Tim has to have time to find out what the changes are, because it is a cost item. So we'll wait until next meeting and vote on it, and I'll just politely say I can sign it. I can go up to Wilbur whenever.
It won't take long. We received it last week. It's actually been expired for a few years, so there hasn't technically, I guess, been one. And it goes into effect next year. So I think the timeline's okay. I don't think there's really a problem there. Housekeeping. I talked to you last month about cell phone policies and wanting to have some interaction with students on that topic before bringing it to you for a real kind of heavy-duty conversation. So that's where we still are with that. In May, we have some non-union staff who you act on salary adjustments for, so you'll be seeing those more than likely at the May meeting. We don't want to wait till June for that. I already talked about the capital plan and capital expenditures. Last month, we talked about refinishing the gym floor, and the company that's going to do it doesn't provide the kind of design services we really want. I mean, they'll put something together for you, but I just don't think it would be good enough for what we want to do. How often are we going to sand the floor down to bare wood, right, and do this? You might do it in 10 more years, so let's do it and do it well. So what I will get done by May, by your next meeting, is we will have and these are copyrighted, so they won't be these, but just to give you an idea, something that uses a Timberwolf head and something that uses an entire wolf body. I do think that the style of these in general is a more modern, that's why I'm using them. I have copies if anyone wants them, because I thought you might. So without just copying these, this is Minnesota, so you can't use it, but something, we can go in this direction, and if it's changed a little bit, it's okay. We're a public school, so it'll work out. And of course, these would be in silver and black with white, not in any of these other colors. But if we could create one with a head and one with the full wolf body, and then do the whole rest of the court layout, then we could provide, 2 court layout options with each logo possibility. Now we have 4 to look at. We can let the students get involved. We can have a lot of fun with it. And the nice thing is we don't really need to know for sure what we're going to do until June for the work to be done in July. So we're okay.
Okay.
So there's your update on that, and I can be done.
You sure now?
Unless you have
What
questions.
about SNHU furniture donation?
I put that under future. Yeah, so I haven't heard back to my last
Okay.
question, so I'm waiting to hear. Thank you for asking.
No.
So under action items, we have the innovation plan, its submission to the New Hampshire Department of Ed.
So the way this law works, it's a new law. There's only one innovation school so far in New Hampshire, and they did it because they wanted to be allowed to operate without a principal. So they needed relief from an ed rule, a regulation that requires every school to have a principal. And they have so few students that it really made sense, and it took them about 10 minutes to get it. The state board has never seen anything like this. I say never. They've seen one. They haven't seen anything with this kind of depth. So what happens is when you're ready to approve the innovation plan after a public hearing, which is required, then you do that in an open meeting, like tonight's if you choose to. We submit it to the Department of Education. That starts a 45-day period when they give us feedback. If that feedback leads us to make substantive changes to the plan, it comes back to you for a public hearing and reapproval. After those 45 days, then the innovation plan can be placed on a State Board of Education agenda, and they can act on it either in the meeting when it's presented or afterwards. And the last one they did in about 10 or 15 minutes, but I just told you about another matter. They heard a hearing in March, and then they put it on the table, and they came back to it in April. So it's sort of up to them what happens then. If we were under a big crunch to have this alternative program, the Granite State Academy, available to students all over the state, it would be really urgent that we get this done immediately. The only pressure we have to get approval is that this project is being grant funded, and that grant expires September 30th. So if you back up from the number of days that the Department of Ed has to give us feedback, and then how many state board meetings it might require, and then whether or not the state board meets in both July and August, which I'm not sure happen, kind of like you don't always meet in the summer. If you're comfortable enough, I ask that you approve the plan tonight so that we can move that process forward. I'll say the same thing I said the night we talked about the alternative program itself. We won't do it and enroll a student in it without coming back to you. So getting it through the approval process doesn't mean we will do it. You get to decide if or when we actually do it.
I make a motion to submit the innovation plan to the Department of Education.
Second. Any more discussion about it?
How do the teachers feel about this, right? We're talking about losing students in the building. This is another thing that might take students out of the building that could cost teacher jobs, staff jobs down the line. How do the teachers feel about this?
Just doesn't take kids out of the building.
Well, no, to be fair, let's be fair. If a student who resides in Alton or Barnstead wants to enroll in this program, then they'd be taking their academic classes online, right? So the night 2 years ago when I gave our newest 2 members a big binder last month that had this in it, that I presented these ideas, remember we had tried a few other things first to address enrollment at the school, and one of the concepts we talked about that night is that enrollment and revenue are related, right? Enrollment could mean more kids in the school, but another possibility is revenue to help, because what are we trying to do? We're trying to keep programs staffed and open for the students who live in Alton and Barnstead and want to come here. I wouldn't have proposed this to you without open enrollment. Open enrollment is what makes it possibly work, right? Because then a student who lives anywhere in New Hampshire could enroll in this program. So if open enrollment works, that increases the number of students in the school. And then if a small number of students who do live in Alton or Barnstead wanted to go to this thing, our teachers wouldn't see a reduction in the number of students in their classes. But am I offering you guarantees and certainties? I'm not, and I can't. Because this is unusual. This is not something that public school districts normally try to do. What most public school districts do is they see enrollment declining and they go, well, we better cut some things. Well, there's nothing we can do about it. And maybe in the end they're right and all these things won't work out, but we will have tried harder than any other school district has ever tried, I hope, because the kids who live in Alton and Barnes, I mean, you built a good school, you know? You built a really nice place that does good things for kids, and I don't think the boards that I've known here over these few years just aren't ready to roll over and accept that things are inevitably going to change. We want to try to do something about it. So I think it's a legitimate question, and I think if it all works, the numbers end up working out.
Right. I think some of the presentations we had was pretty good, that a lot of homeschool kids might.
I was going to say
Go on
that
to this
VLAC
list.
courses too really have I don't see other alternative programs if they want to go online and learn. So this would present an option instead of using VLAC courses. They could actually do this academy.
VLAX, are you familiar with VLAX?
Slightly, yeah.
So this, I feel like, would really be kind of a competition with
Yeah.
VLAX. And it would be a particular student, type of student. It would not affect as many traditional students and teacher roles as you might think at first.
Right.
So
Right?
I think that the people at the Department of Education who were involved in deciding which districts would get these innovative school grants, that's what they call it, might have even been recognizing that some of the families whose kids have gone to VLAX haven't all been completely satisfied, and recognize that there's no competition in the
I
state.
would
There's
agree.
only one public
There's
grant.
only one, right.
Only one.
Yeah.
So I do think that's part of the point.
And I think people aren't as satisfied with VLAC as they used to be. There's not a lot of interaction between the student and the teachers. I mean, my granddaughter took one class in VLAC and still went here because they didn't have the course she wanted. And that's what we've offered in the past. If the courses aren't offered here, we offer them a VLAC option. But this would be more interactive.
Right. It sounds like this is more targeted not towards Prospect Mountain students.
It's tricky, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to build local enrollment in the brick and mortar school, sports that kids want to do, wood shop and metal shop and AP classes if we can get, you know, enough kids to, we want it all here, and then we're talking about this online school for kids who don't show up here, but that goes to the revenue part.
Right.
So the way the math roughly works out is there's a tuition set for a in-person open enrollment student. You've got that calculation in front of you from earlier tonight. And then there's a tuition set for what's technically an open enrollment student, a student who doesn't live here, who wants to attend the Granite State Academy, and that can be a lower number because the cost of running that program is less than this, but it includes what you pay to K-12 Stride, K-12 Education, the online school provider, and it includes what you pay to the Spirit of Adventure Council to provide the in-person stuff. Then it includes a little bit of money for administration, and then it includes a little bit more. And that's what this district benefits essentially from being the order.
I think more than that, because when we heard the other states doing it, is VLAC's not a good option, right? People don't like it.
Some people do.
Some people do. Well, homeschoolers are looking for something else. People looking for alternative. If they did this program too, they could also do our drama clubs, they could do our music, they could do our sports. So it also would draw, hopefully, with those individuals who don't want to come here now, maybe if they're doing that type of online academy, they'd want to come here going, oh, we like this, maybe we want to be involved in some other things in the school. So you have an opportunity actually to encompass hopefully some more people coming.
How many, I'm going to put you both on the spot so it's not just one, but how many students over the course of this one school year have left going to this school full-time to attend VLAX full-time? More than 10? Fewer than 10?
VLAX, full-time VLAX?
Full-time, probably maybe 5, if that.
I think that those are the numbers we're talking about, right? How many students might we lose who live here and go to school here? I think it would be like the number of students we already see go to VLAX or go to homeschool, who, by the way, we're losing. We're losing them now.
Right.
This would give them an option that we have. But I understand the question because it's about our teachers and our staff and employment. And our goal cannot be, and I don't think it's ever been the joint board's goal, to just have an empty building here and teach a bunch of kids online. The goal here is to have a vibrant, high-quality
Kids like
school.
being here, I think.
Right.
I think kids like being in school.
Right,
They
the
don't
person-
necessarily want to be online.
No, the student that is looking for this program is a particular kind of student, and is very different than.
Right, we kind of heard it before I joined the board. I believe Rob talked about his son, and his son wasn't a traditional student. He ended up going to Kingswood, where he thrived in the Lakes Region Tech. So are we pushing kids to go to the Lakes Region Tech?
Oh, yeah.
So in this year's budget, we were, another great question, thank you. It's like a softball for me. We were able to expand the number of seats for our students at Kingswood. We were budgeting 30 seats a year, now it's 45.
And how many kids went?
I just heard today that we have 44 kids who want to go
Right.
in those 45 spots. A year ago, we would have told 14 of those kids they couldn't go.
Right.
Now we're not.
So have we continued to push that effort and kind of keep raising those numbers and make sure every kid that wants to go? So like kid, right, we're talking about a non-traditional student. That's something, it seems like they thrive in that environment. So why aren't we necessarily pushing more kids there rather than developing an online school?
Well, it's also
we're
contractual.
both.
Take field trips.
Kingswood
See, the field trips
controls
make a difference. We used
how
to
many
take our
kids.
kids to the Hewitt Center from just in 8th grade. We'd take them up to the Hewitt Center even though they couldn't enter in 9th grade, and they would get so excited about the programs there. And I think field trips is what they're doing now. They're taking the group, the whole group up there to show them what's up there. So they gain that excitement and they want to perhaps do one of the programs.
So is that what you're asking her? I
Okay.
feel like you're
But I think
Yeah.
I understand what
It's
you're
more so,
asking.
why don't we push kids, get more seats up there where kids are hands-on, that's kind of not the non-traditional, why aren't we pushing more
But
kids up
there are
there?
many types of non-traditional.
Right.
And that's, you're thinking
Yep.
of a very vocational student.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the students that will be interested in an online only are maybe medically fragile or have social emotional issues or are sailing around the world. I mean, there's lots of, there are other types of students, because I agree with you, I'm very pro-vocational and very for that, but I think this innovation plan is to serve a certain population of students and also get revenue,
Right.
so.
But I do think, so one of the things I've been thinking about for this joint board, because you've changed a little bit, right, as I look around the room. Well, half of you have changed a little bit. The other half are exactly the same. But it is time, maybe this summer, to come back together and talk about goals and strategy and what have we been trying to achieve, right? Because more access to vocational education has been one of those things. At Prospect Mountain, it used to be the case that only 11th and 12th grade students were allowed to enroll at LRTC. Well, under New Hampshire law and regulation, 10th graders are supposed to have access to vocational programs. Guess what we've done? 10th graders are now enrolling for the first time right now. 10th graders are enrolling along with 11th graders and 12th graders at LRTC. We've added 50% more seats. I think you'll see budgets going forward where we try to add more. One of the reasons we've been able to do it is the state has made a commitment, government's really good at this, they've made a commitment to reimburse the cost of vocational tuition to school districts, but then they haven't done it. So they tell us, you budget the money, but don't worry, you're gonna get it back, and then they don't do it. But, gotta give them credit, bless you, gotta give them credit, our vocational reimbursement from the state has gone up considerably. So the reason in this budget, or it was convenient, maybe it wasn't the reason, in this budget we were able to expand access so much was, it didn't cost us that much more. I think we increased the budget line by something like $4,000 or $5,000, but we were able to get 50% more students in because our reimbursement's finally gone up. So I think we're looking constantly for ways. For anyone who doesn't know this, until my first day here, I had only worked in vocational schools my entire career. So it runs in my blood, and I heard it from members of the joint board when I came to met you for the first times, that it was something that we want to value here too.
Yeah, I think my last thing is just, like, I'm not opposed to this idea, but it's just if behavior is bad, if test scores are low, if teachers are unhappy, like, I'm still curious what the last, like, evaluation talked about and how that kind of came back. And just, if those are issues in our school with our students and our kids, I think we should address those things first before we get innovative with a program like this. Like, it sounds like a good idea, but if there's other things we need to work on, instead of putting all our resources into this, I think that's where the focus should be. That's all.
I think but Tim is proposing we just send it to the Department of Ed at this point. That's all he's asking us to do now. He's not saying we have to commit to it still.
And it's
Well,
funded.
and good news for all of you, the only district employee who spends time on this project is me. That's it. So we have principals and discipline folks and school counselors and social workers. I mean, we have people in each school to run the schools. And yes, part of my job is to work with them and be aware and guide what they're doing and make sure that their work is all consistent with our needs and with our strategic goals. But everything else related to this project has been grant funded, and it isn't even me, it's other people who we've hired to do the work, again, under that grant. If a day comes that we might need to spend a penny of our own on this, I'm coming to you first. I guarantee that we still have some money under the grant that we haven't even committed yet. So as long as we do it between now and September, we still have time and flexibility to make sure that this is being paid for by the federal government. I mean, honestly, I think that going back to the fact that somewhere in the system, somebody recognized, or some group of people recognized, hey, there's only one online school in New Hampshire, and it's VLAX, and maybe somebody else would think about creating an option. I think that's important. I think that probably had something to do with us getting this.
Well, and I don't want to criticize VLAC necessarily. It does come in handy for students who are going to school and can't get a course they want. Then they can go online and do the VLAC. So that is a positive.
And I also want to make sure that, another huge benefit of our schools, so we've talked about the vocational, increasing that, but I mean, I also want to recognize the kids that are not necessarily vocational, that are more college-bound and are taking classes through NHTI and SHMU.
You're getting credit for it.
They get credit for it, and it's a huge benefit when they are in college, because if they have more credits when they get there, they can enroll for future classes at a higher time. They get a better pick of dorms. Like there are multiple,
And they can graduate early.
and they can graduate early. So it's really cost saving. So there's a lot of pieces to the pie, and
So Running Start, Ann, is the name of that program, and that's another thing we've expanded just over the last couple. So I think that the joint board's direction has been as many options as possible for as many different ways kids are going to learn and do well. And at times, and I won't look at them when I say it, I think to some folks it feels like we're doing an awful lot of things at the same time, but we're doing an awful lot of things because we haven't necessarily developed these things here when the law or the regulation went into effect. So now we're catching up with some of them and then doing others because we think it's a good idea. So we are doing a lot of different things to try to develop all these different options.
So there's a motion on the floor. Can we have a vote, please? All those in favor of sending the plan to the Department of Ed?
Aye.
Any opposed? There you have it.
Thanks.
There you go. So the program of studies, Linda, is up.
That's me.
Yeah? Okay, sorry. I could have moved it to the front. I apologize.
So thank you for having me this evening. It just feels like I was here not too long ago introducing myself, and here we are already middle of April. So Mr. Broderick, or Dr. Broderick, was speaking about some goals for the future, and one of our system-wide goals that we've been focusing on this year
is cultural competency and equity within the school system. So when we began to meet and talk about equity, we really wanted to define the difference between equity and equality. And the equality is often, people think of that as a one-size-fits-all. Everybody gets the same thing. It's equal, it's fair. But we wanted to focus more on the equity piece so that everybody, we remove barriers and we provide supports to allow students to get what they need. And I'm going to share a picture with you right now because this picture really shows, it just makes it clear the difference between equality and equity. In this picture, everybody gets a box to be able to stand on and look over a fence. So everybody's getting the same thing, but not everybody's getting the opportunity to see the same thing. So you have one student, he doesn't need a box at all. You have another student, he needs one box. And you have the third student who needs 2 boxes so that they all can see over the fence. So our system-wide goal is directly tied into what we do as school counselors. We help remove barriers, close equity gaps within the school, and empower all students to succeed. And it's our responsibility as educators to promote policies and practices in the school and district to ensure that students are treated equitably. The mission of Prospect Mountain High School is to personalize education in order to maximize student success or individual success. And then the teachers went on to define this even in more depth by saying personalization is providing a learning structure to allow students ownership of their own unique learning process and personal individuality to learn essential skills and responsibilities, allowing them to expand their potential. So we formed, or the JMA Curriculum Committee began meeting at the beginning of this year. And we focused on this mission statement, but we also investigated equitable practices at Prospect Mountain High School, and we looked at the program of studies to do that. We conducted an equity audit and began asking questions such as, do we have equitable language in the program of studies? Can students access particular classes, or are there barriers standing in their way? Are our GPA weightings equitable? Those kind of questions. This year, the high school faculty actually filled out a survey on the indicators of educational equity. And the survey had scaled statements with 1 equals strongly agree to 5 strongly disagree. We focused on one statement in particular, which was ensuring just outcomes, evidenced by the school's program of studies, that it's designed to ensure that all learning pathways will enable all students to meet rigorous standards. The faculty average for that survey was a 3.02. So it was indicative that we needed to do some work, and we needed to ensure just outcomes within our program of studies here at Prospect Mountain High School. So with that being said, we started with one of the inequities that we discovered when we were looking at the grading scale. Bless you.
Sorry.
And that was at our basic and remedial classes. Most of the students that were in these classes were students that were identified as students with special education needs. The highest GPA that those students could receive in one of those classes was a 3.3. Whereas students in the general classes could receive a 4.3. So in speaking with several teachers, they reported that they were teaching the same content and they had the same requirements, but they were being penalized right off from the start in their GPAs. So we've removed the basic, in fact, this year we removed the basic and remedial classes from the program of studies. As we set out to identify barriers students might encounter, we also began taking a deeper dive into our practices of leveling and tracking. We also reviewed course descriptions and course prerequisites, etc., and decided that we do, in fact, need to ensure that all learning pathways will enable all students to meet rigorous standards and help prepare them for their future endeavors. Unfortunately, some students have been placed in levels or tracks that they don't necessarily want to be in, or feel stuck and don't know how to get out of those tracks. For instance, we want to do away with the word general. So instead of a class being called World History General, it would be called World History. We want students to get away from the thinking of, I'm a general level student and I can't take any other classes. We all know that, like us, students have strengths and weaknesses, and we want them to challenge themselves and not get locked into a particular path. And this goes into that a little bit further. Rather than prereqs, we've changed the word to eligibility for classes. In the past, we had certain grades that were attached in a prerequisite. So for example, in order for a student to get into class B, the requirement may have been that they had to earn an 85 in class A. So what happens to the student who earned an 84? Did they not get into that particular class that they wanted to because of their prereq? They can't join that class? This was not an equitable situation. In addition, most of our classes here at Prospect Mountain High School require teacher permission in order for them to take the class. For the 24-25 school year, we're encouraging students to meet with the teachers and talk with the teachers about the expectations of the classes before they sign up for them. But we want the students, as well as the parents, to make informed decisions about the classes that they choose to help meet their pathway. We have made some minor changes or rewording in the program of studies for flow and clarity, but what I'm bringing to you tonight are the major changes in the program of studies.
Can I just interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Are you going to read this word for word?
No.
Okay, because we've all gotten it, and
Yes.
I just want to, for
And
timely fashion
Yes.
and manner, that we.
And thank you for pointing that out, Ann. I think the next sections are going to go, that was pretty much in a nutshell. Now there's some changes in the program of studies.
Okay.
So the wording has been changed on something. The leveling portion, and you guys all have that in your, has been reworded. Anything in blue that you received has been reworded.
The blue is the new.
The blue is the new.
Right.
Okay. So if you look, there's courses, college prep courses, and honors courses. Those have been reworded. One of the things that we started to focus on this year as well was the idea of untracking, the research behind it, but felt like we need to hold off on that and look at that next year for possibly the following year. We did have a slight change to the graduation requirements, and those are highlighted in blue. In our Running Start classes that we have now, those are all the early college classes, and they've actually changed the name to early college. Early college in the high school, early college in the classroom, or early college on the college campus. I've added new language in regarding our ELOs that was recommended by the person that we're contracting with right now for ELO information. And then there is, let's see, one of the things that we did want to bring up to the board is we have students that are going above and beyond, and they're taking early college classes, but it's not counting towards our GPA. And we really feel like the students that are working on those classes, that those grades should count, and those points, they should earn GPA points for those. We've added the New Hampshire Scholars Program in there. Another important thing that we want you to consider is that we feel like we recommend that students remain with their graduating class and not be retained. There are several reasons for that, and I'd be happy to go into that if anybody has any questions.
So when you say don't be retained, if they fail a class, we're offering course recovery, credit recovery or something, correct?
Yes.
so they can recover those credits, but if they choose not to, you're saying that they should still be considered seniors.
They should stay with their class and with the understanding that they have to graduate with 24 credits.
Okay.
We also would like eventually next year possibly to look at our GPA system and look at possibly getting closer to a 4.0 GPA system. Talks about changes in the homework, and then there's some changes to the English curriculum. I'm really excited. We're offering some new English electives that I think are going to be great.
So, yeah.
So the teachers have all been part of these changes,
Yes.
correct? That's
Yes.
important too. I think everyone needs to understand that.
And
that
we've
the
been
teachers
talking
are part of it.
with equity all year
Right.
with the teachers, the faculty. There is one class that I didn't have on here. I missed it. We're adding a statistics honors and dual enrollment class through the Lakes Region Community College, the early college program. So that's not on there, so I wanted to say that. We also have some new electives in the music department, which is going to be great. Students will have more choices. We have a few changes to the social studies department. Another one, we've decided on the fact that we'd like to keep the CP sociology that was crossed out. We'd like to keep that. So I just wanted to let everybody know there's been a lot of work put into the program of studies, and really with the focus on equity in our planning and closing the equality gap amongst our students, and we feel like this is really a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think
Now, does anybody have questions?
there's a lot of work put in.
Anyone have questions? Linda? Have a motion to accept the program?
Make a motion to accept the 24-25 program studies.
Second.
All
Just
those-
like to, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone that was involved. Excellent job.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, you have your program of studies.
Thank you.
All right, the audit, Heidi. I'm assuming that's you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I think an electronic copy of the full audit was sent to all of you for review. This is just the letter of operations of overview that is in the packet. There were no major findings. There were a couple of repeat things that we're definitely working on. But tonight I just need your approval on the fund balance that will be returned to all three of Barnstead school districts. Very small this year, $22,822 is the total. Alton will receive $11,715, and Barnstead will receive $11,107.
Make a motion to accept the fiscal year 23 audit with $11,715 being returned to Alton and $11,107 being returned to Barnstead.
Second.
Any more discussion or questions for Heidi?
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. Your audit passes. Now we have last day of school, Tim.
New Hampshire high schools are required to be in session for structured learning time, that's the term, for 990 hours. After a surprising April, we are no longer on track to do that. As of our scheduled last day, we had just squeaked by prior to this month. However, in the month of June, there are 4 total Thursday and Friday block days at the school. Those days contain something just over 40 minutes less structured learning time than a 7-period day. So if we convert those 4 Thursdays and Fridays in June into 7-period days, so that means we start at the same time all 5 days those weeks during the month of June. It'll be easy to remember because it's the month of June. During June, every day will be a 7-period day. So we gain a little bit of time there. And then we make Tuesday, which is currently scheduled to be an early release on our final day, a full day. And we have an early release on Wednesday, I believe it is the 19th,
The holiday.
which is a federal holiday, but we are allowed to have school that day if we choose to. We make that an early release. We will have 990.02 hours of structured learning time at Prosper Mountain High School this year.
So do you need a vote on that?
We do.
I make a motion that we change the block days in June to full days, thereby meeting the state requirement for hours for school year 23,
And add a day.
24, and
You're adding a day.
You're adding it in.
adding a day.
You're adding a
We're
day.
adding a day.
Wednesday, the early release.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second. So I'll just make it clear it was the last day for everybody, so it's in motion.
The last.
Which makes the last day June
The
19th, which is
right.
an early release day.
Any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Just make it a next snowstorm is.
Totally.
For the same joke last night, I'm still not laughing.
I told them that.
Proposed calendar for next year is here as well. It is different from the draft that I first gave you last month. Had a pretty long meeting with the leaders of our teachers associations all at the same time. So rather than kind of have to run around and align everybody's interests, we were able to all do it at the same table. And there's not really a change here at the high school, because the high school already would have come back on Tuesday at the end of August and Wednesday at the end of August for professional days, for work days, and then had freshman orientation on Thursday, followed by a 4-day Labor Day weekend. So this is not a change for the high school. So there was a change relating to that at each elementary school, which some of you heard about last night and others will hear about tomorrow night. But for the high school, it was a pretty easy conversation, and it is essentially the calendar that I gave you as a draft last month.
So the older kids won't be coming back that week, they'll be coming back after Labor Day.
And we've been doing that for quite some time,
Right.
where there's a 9th grade orientation. Some of the older kids come in as orientation peer leaders and that kind of thing, but
Sure.
it's not a school day for them.
Can we also actually set graduation day as June 13th and not have it proposed?
We can.
14th.
Oh, for the following year.
Oh,
Yeah.
for the following year.
For the
So
following.
next year's graduation would be June 13th. And when you adopt this calendar, we can make that graduation day, remove the word proposed.
I think so too.
And the reason that's important is if you've determined a graduation date on your calendar in advance, and then due to snow days, there are conflicting regulations. Welcome to New Hampshire. One of the regulations says if you've established your graduation day, then that's the day of graduation. And another one says there can't be more than 5 school days after graduation.
Yeah, that's tough.
But if it was on your calendar from the beginning of the year, and then due to snow days we have to add more and there are more than 5 afterwards, then you're allowed to keep it.
And the board recognizes that it is very difficult for people who have out-of-town family
We went through
coming in
this
to
last year.
change the
It's all good.
Absolutely.
graduation
I
date.
agree. You want me to hit the gavel on this?
Yes, I
Just thought I'd mention that. All righty. Any other questions about the calendar? Do I have a
do.
motion?
No other comments?
All right, so let's take a vote then. All those in favor of the calendar?
I'm gonna come to that.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, I'm happy for that.
You're all set?
Sorry.
You're all set?
Ann and Jason.
So on the personnel report, questions about individuals can appropriately be taken to non-public. We have 4 resignations. These are individuals. These are all 4 teachers. They do plan to work through June 30th, but they've notified us that they plan to move on at the end of the year. I've appointed 3 people to the support staff, an assistant coach, a custodian, and a front office administrative assistant. And then we have some resignations, 3 resignations of support staff, a custodian, a paraprofessional, and an administrative assistant, 2 of whose replacements are in that appointment grid right above there. And then we have some retirement notifications, and this is the time of year when we hear this. I did notice and ask some questions about a number of people from the kitchen, as you can see,
Yes.
all letting us know, and it turns out they're all already retired.
They are already retired and they want to have their freedom. They don't want to be stuck on
retired.
it. So some of them are willing to come back as substitutes because they want their own schedule.
Of course. Retirement is great.
Make a motion to accept the resignation of Kat Yell, Emily Guzzo, Kimberly Stiles, and Greg Flood.
Second.
Any more discussion and questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty.
May I just say that I'm delighted to have Laurel Cristaldi back in the main office at the high school. She's returning, and it's wonderful to have her, and people are excited to say hello and see her there.
Great.
So Laurel, who we hired, is a former employee who left to care for a family member
Sure,
for
that's
medical
great.
reasons a few years ago.
All right. Yes. All right, so there's no public here, but I'll open up public input, and now I will close it. Okay? Future agenda items, we have the gym floor, the donation, the cell
Got it
phone
all.
policies, and you've named several other things that you're gonna add.
It's all written down right here. Got
All
it.
right, anyone else want to add something to the next agenda before we start talking about agendas? All right, so we do need to go into non-public.
Make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91-A:3 IIAC.
Second.
All those, we have to do a roll call, right? Roll
Yes.
call, please.
Yes.
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 All right. Thanks for coming, Wyatt.